Happy birthday! No, not to you, unless it is your birthday, in which case, happy birthday. But today, a very special boy is celebrating his birthday. Cody Banks. 2. Destination London. A glorious film I first experienced at the age of 6, teen, and one time watched over 20 times in a single month. I've never actually seen the first one, though. I mean, the second one was such a masterpiece. At this point, why bother? Don't mistake that for lack of research, though. I even read the Agent Cody Banks 2 Destination London novelization for this video. I've been saying this is my favorite movie of all time for so long now, I'm not even sure if it's a joke anymore. Is it really tied with the Greek film Attenborough for undisputed best? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. I'll tell you one person who must have loved it, though, and that's Madonna, because she and Jason Alexander were executive producers on this film. Also, someone named Matthew Broderick worked on props, but I think that one's just a coincidence. But before we begin, all you want to do is like and subscribe. Sorry, that was really cringe. I'll explain why I'm wearing this later. By the way, I have the choker. It's just made out of a weird material that's, like, irritating to the skin, so no thanks. This is in fact an MGM film, so just know this is brought to you by the same studio that made The Wizard of Oz and Dr. Zhivago, and will be just as high in quality in terms of visuals and storytelling. I mean, they did also produce the Carrie remake and House of Gucci, so truly nothing but quality coming from the studio with the Scary Lion logo. It starts right on my main man, Cody Banks. You know him, you love him. He's just left the set of the Apocalypse Now sequel, and is engaged in a heated game of capture the flag. As you may have noticed, he's played by the absolute legend Frankie Muniz, who unfortunately doesn't remember filming this due to a traumatic brain injury. Obviously, he wins Capture the Flag because he's Cody Banks, who can't not be incredible. Also, Percy Jackson wasn't there to cheat and use his water magic to get the victory. Cody then shows himself to be a real gentleman and apologizes to one of the opposing team members for kicking him in the face. And though I and many others may applaud his grace and humility, it is not received well by head counselor Captain Squishy. Bro, I don't even like kids, and even I wouldn't leave a child in the care of somebody who goes by the name Squishy willingly. I mean, add an A and an E in there and you have a delightful gaming YouTuber, but as it stands, Captain Squishy, who works at Camp Woody, just sounds like a lot of money being spent on therapy later in life. If you recognize Monsieur Squishy here, then you've probably watched a bunch of movies I haven't, because the only other thing I myself have actually watched Keith Allen in was Trainspotting, where he played Gil, whose name I only actually know from reading the book. However, he was in a film I do really want to watch. My Wife is an Actress premiered at TIFF back on September 12th of 2001. Bad timing. Though it did happen to coincide with one of Keith's kids' 15th birthdays. It stars Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is like my 4th or 5th favorite actor. I don't care what anybody says, Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2 are masterpieces as long as you watch the director's cut. Unfortunately, My Wife is an Actress has proven very difficult to find, except for a $50 DVD on Amazon, plus shipping, but I don't have that kind of money right now. So if you do happen to find whatever the film equivalent of a slime tutorial is, just let me know, but make sure it has English subtitles because I'm a bad Canadian who does not speak French. Back to Cody, he gets some sage advice from his superior.
Trust nobody, including me.
Also, I love this wacky sound effect when he catches the ball. After that, all of the campers have to prepare for the dreaded Parents' Day, which I assume in a typical situation isn't a big deal, but if you couldn't tell by the full contact Capture the Flag and the K in camp, this ain't your grandma's summer camp. This is a secret training facility for young spies such as Cody and his friends who, speaking of, seem to have their priorities in correct order.
You know us, USA first, Cody Banks second, then Mom and Apple Pie tied for third.
So all of the kids must scramble to hide everything, from the submarine to the satellite launch. Upon arrival, Cody greets his whiny brother, along with his mom, played by Cynthia Stevenson from Happiness and Jennifer's Body, and his dad, Daniel Roebuck, who is the agent in Final Destination, not named Shrek. At the bonfire that night, a very over-it Captain Squishy stirs his, let's be honest, definitely alcoholic drink with his probably well-used knife, before addressing the visiting parents and mentioning that his real name is Victor.
We're not going anywhere till I find out who this Victor fella is, right? And what he wants from my brother.
Diaz, and prompting the campers to sing the camp theme song, which I totally haven't memorized. I don't know what you're talking about. With your trees full of bark. Ruff, 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 ruff. Although he does slip up a few times and goes on a slightly concerning tangent.
About America and her so-called friends.
The parents are fooled enough to go on their merry way, but not before Cody's mom confiscates his pocket knife. which he definitely could have used because later that night, some mysterious helicopters descend upon the camp. With a K. Cody is charged with protecting Captain Squishy, who lets him know that it's all just a drill. After some inventive combat maneuvers by the fellow campers, Cody commandeers a chopper and attempts to ground the other one, which nearly leads to his young friend Ryan's demise. Luckily, though, no one was hurt and Squishy was evacuated successfully. The director of the CIA, yes, that is Keith David, then arrives and lets him know that he won't be getting any of Big Tim's heroin as a reward, as that was no drill. He takes him down to a secret facility under the camp and explains that Captain Squishy was conducting mind control research, and he just made off with the technology. Well, you never know, he may be using it for something good.
Diaz, however, was more interested in developing it to control people's minds in a bad way.
Gotta respect the to-the-pointedness of it. That is good headline writing 101 right there, although I don't think it's in CP style. Cody's job is now to fly to London and retrieve him. Keith David gets attacked by a Beanie Baby and lets him know that he will have to blend in as a clarinet player in an international youth orchestra. He doesn't really know how to play one, but Keith David assures him that he won't need to. Then he's off on a flight across the pond and our story really begins. Cody's arrival is punctuated by a song fittingly called Destination London, which definitely isn't reminiscent of any other well-known songs with London in the title. Actually, this song is kind of a banger. I mean, how could you not appreciate the line, "He showed you how to live, now he'll show you how to die." He meets his handler Derek, because I guess child spies need one of those. I don't know, maybe they explained it more in the first movie I never watched. Derek is of course played by Anthony Anderson of Blackish and Kangaroo Jack fame.
Fuck Bruce Willis.
And the way he hems up this role really does work. I don't know why this shot of the sign is so out of focus, but Cody gets mad at Derek for his lack of subtlety, and the tension doesn't decrease, even after his identity is confirmed with their secret code.
Chicken sandwich with everything. A ling-a-ling-a-ling.
Derek introduces him to Kumar, the driver of their Gucci-lined surveillance vehicle. Basically, the whole lesson Cody has to learn this movie is that it's okay to relax and be a kid, so his cold demeanor is meant to be contrasted with Derek's carefree attitude. Which is a pretty cool twist on the trope, while being kinda heartbreaking knowing that all those children at Camp Woody are essentially giving up their childhood innocence so the government can use them to do their dirty work. A sentiment that could metaphorically also be applied to child actors. I don't know if that allegory is intentional, though, as the director did cast his 17-year-old nephew in this. After giving his charge a brief montage tour of London, they regroup at the London Eye to learn that Captain Squishy, by now the characters just refer to him as Diaz, but I'ma stick with Squishy, is working with Lord Duncan Kenworth to exploit the mind control technology at an upcoming World Leaders Summit. Kenworth's wife runs the music school that Cody will have to infiltrate. To aid with his cover, the three of them have to travel to the London crypts where this asshole named Neville keeps a lab. This character is fucking annoying, and we don't see him again after this scene, thank God. They get some cool spy toys, like a retainer listening device, exploding Mentos, and a clarinet that plays itself. All the orchestra scenes in this give me flashbacks to grade 7 band class. Everyone had to take it. I picked trombone because I thought it would be the easiest to fake. And it was. Apparently nobody noticed I was just moving the slider around randomly and not even looking at the sheet music. It's unconfirmed, but Agent Cody Banks 2 Destination London may take place in the James Bond cinematic universe, because Cody complains that he doesn't get an Aston Martin like Bond, and Kumar tells him, all in good time, not that it's just a book/movie franchise. No hard evidence yet, but I'll keep looking. Lady Kenworth greets our hero, even though she's self-admittedly pickled on cough medicine. Inside the house, he comes across his target, Duncan, aka Sam's neglectful father. It wouldn't be a truly British film if there weren't at least a few familiar faces from Game of Thrones. I mean, heck, we just had Thoros of Myr in the last scene. As much as I'd like to forget that. Is it okay if I go on an unnecessary tangent with an underwhelming payoff? Why am I asking you? This is my YouTube channel and you can't respond. So this actor, James Faulkner, voiced Snape in the Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince video game. He was only ever in the one game. Now, typically they tried to get actual film actors to voice the characters, but obviously Alan Rickman had better things to do. A couple of the bigger names did end up doing some voice work, like Rupert Grint, Tom Felton, and even Ralph Fiennes for like 2 of them. However, it was typically the actors in the more supporting roles that were more likely to come back for the games. One such was Cormac McLagan, who first showed up in the Half-Blood Prince film where he famously puked on Snape. Now, McLagan was played by the actor Freddie Stroma, who also just so happened to be in Game of Thrones, where he played Sam's brother Dickon for like 1 episode before he was recast. But still, I think I just won myself a Kevin Bacon right there. Moving on, Cody is introduced to the musical geniuses. A couple of the more plot-important students get introductions, such as overly enthusiastic child Sabine, obvious love interest Emily, French horn player Habu, and Victor the Vampire. Wait, what? God damn it, again, really? Look, this wasn't supposed to be the video right after my 19th video, but as I previously mentioned, I am bad with time management, okay? Also, it doesn't help that this man is basically like a human jump scare who just pops up out of nowhere in like every movie. He's the walking embodiment of the Margot Robbie effect. Because I swear, back in 2020, he just showed up out of nowhere in like 3 separate movies I watched in the same month. Actually, it was 4 because I found out a bit later on he played this child in Elizabeth. But you know what? We love a success story. It's always inspiring to see someone succeed in the acting industry. I mean, if Victor the Vampire wasn't cast in this, he may not have gone on to have such a fruitful career. And from that, you may wonder, how did he get this role? Well, naturally, nepotism. At least it's forgivable because he's actually talented, but do you remember a few moments ago when I mentioned the director cast his nephew in this? Yeah. The director of Agent Cody Banks 2 Destination London is Kevin Allen. He was briefly in the movie Trainspotting along with his brother, the aforementioned Keith Allen, who ended up making an appearance in a documentary about the history of football hosted by none other than his son Alfie Allen, Victor the Vampire.
Hey, it's better than sex.
Now, mostly unrelated to what I was just talking about. I said Victor the Vampire was in the movie Elizabeth. Well, it wasn't just him. His sister, renowned singer Lily Allen, was also in it, and the titular Elizabeth refers to Elizabeth I, daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, who Victor the Vampire was also in a movie about called The Other Boleyn Girl. Now, in recent times, the story of Henry VIII's wives has been adapted into a beloved stage musical called Six, where each of the wives take inspiration from different current-day pop stars, and Anne Boleyn's persona is based on Lily Allen. That's why I'm wearing this! I mean, actually, it's a Catherine Howard costume, but it totally makes sense and isn't just because I spent too much money on this and need an excuse to wear it. But you see, it's all one big conspiracy theory, so if I get taken out for exposing the Allen family's secrets, you know who's responsible. And you know what? I was gonna move on, but now that I'm down the rabbit hole, I think I better just address this. The ending of Game of Thrones was trash.
And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
I know, real hot take, but I don't want to dedicate an entire video to it when people much smarter and more well-spoken than me have already done that. But there are still some things I don't think I've seen anybody else mention. So I think from here on out, anytime I come across an actor from a show and something I'm talking about, I'm just going to give my brief thoughts on them and their character. Let's go from least screen time to most, starting with Dickon. I know he's not in this movie, but we'll throw him in anyway. Like I said, this particular actor was only in a single episode, then another dude took over the role. He didn't do too much in what little screen time he had, but I guess he was fine. His father, on the other hand, was also fine. At least in terms of acting. Randall's death was stupid for various reasons, but it mainly stemmed from the general brain rot of the last couple seasons. Another case of the writers not completely thinking through their decisions, so by extension making the characters do the same. Thoros of Myr was a cool character until he got too much screen time, and then the mystique wore off and he got boring. I don't think I even remembered he was on their little ice expedition until he died. And then I immediately went back to not remembering he'd been there. So maybe I just have memory issues. Anyway, I'm just glad he didn't go the same way with Thoros as he did with Neville, because as I think I've already mentioned, I fucking hate him!
Pretty colors.
And now we return to Victor the Vampire. I did say in my previous video that he's my favorite character, but that actually stems from the books that I read prior to watching the show. I thought all the interesting characters weren't good people, and all the good people weren't interesting characters, so I just went off whoever's chapters were the most fun to read. That's why I despise John. I'm sorry, his story is just so disconnected from the others, and I just really don't give a shit. Anyway, the writing in the Reek chapters in the, let's be honest, final book really just felt like something out of a Stephen King novel, who I guess you could say I'm kind of a fan of. So the adaptation of the character was kind of important to me. I didn't think it would translate well to screen at all, but they proved me wrong with great writing and strong acting. I've seen a lot of people say his story is one of the few things that actually went well, but I think well is a pretty strong word to use in this scenario. They didn't make him a complete unlovable shell of his former self that goes against everything he ever stood for a cheap unearned resolution. I'd call that a win, but I think that's just a baseline for character writing. Like most things in that show, it started to fall apart around season 6, for instance with this line, which is just blatantly wrong.
You were making jokes about my height, I seem to recall.
Objection!
Your Honor, I believe my client is innocent of this offense, as there is no evidence of that happening at all. Okay, he did make one joke, but that was only because he was jealous over Roz, and Tyrion wasn't even present for that. Lannister was shitty to his face, but never the other way around. And no way in hell Tyrion wouldn't have just confronted him back when he was making the joke in the first place. Fast forward to my next issue, which is when their boat's being hijacked, and this scene pisses me off so badly. His uncle has a knife to his sister's throat, and in what is supposed to be an act of cowardice, he runs and jumps off the boat, but, that makes no goddamn sense. What the hell was he supposed to do? It looked like if he'd taken another step, Euron would have slit her throat. How would that have been better? Even if this was some sort of invitation for Victor the Vampire to fight him, what would he have done with Yara? Just let her go so they could both gang up on him? I'd say he's not that dumb, but this is the finger on the bum guy. Even if there was someone else to hand her off to, which there clearly isn't, Victor the Vampire probably would have lost in combat against Euron, and Yara would have still been taken or killed. He was a skilled fighter, but recently lost a finger off of his dominant hand. Committing to a fight would have been a rash and short-sighted choice, which part of his character arc is learning not to be. This is so stupid. He did the right thing, and you can't convince me otherwise. There was no way he could help the situation by brute forcing it. Even if he took on his uncle and won, they were still vastly outnumbered. The best thing he could do was retreat, regroup, and ambush them with the element of surprise, which is exactly what happens later on. The scene's implication also completely delegitimizes the sacrifice he tried to make after escaping with Sansa by willingly getting caught by Ramsay's men to give her a chance to escape, even though he knew the torture he'd go back to would be even more horrific than before. There's a bit later on where Euron teases him about having Yara, then makes a joke about Tyrion, and there's a callback to that thing he never did.
Do you remember when we discussed dwarf jokes?
His wasn't even good.
Nothing inherently wrong with that doesn't already stem from the earlier scene, but that was a cringe-as-hell line. Moving along on our next stop on the tour of dumb choices. All the other Ironborn are mad at him for leaving, which, we're past it, I'm not gonna say it again. But he wants to go save his sister, and this guy's like, no, and he's like, yeah, and this guy's like, no, and he's like, yeah, and the guy spits on him, and they fight, and this happens. What? Okay. I hope someone less scared of copyright than me has made an edit of that with the Avengers theme under it, because it really feels like you just unlocked a superpower there, and it's so fucking hilarious. I and anyone else in the world without a penis could tell you that would still hurt like hell. That was a hard kick. That type of blow to any part of the body would be painful. Unless they're saying after everything he's been through, he's just immune to all pain, but that definitely should have been communicated better and explored way more. And now I'm wondering what's worse, the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones or the recent MCU movies? I guess speaking of season 8, notice anything off about this?
My queen.
Your sister?
She only has a few ships and she couldn't sail them here.
Did you catch that? If not, I'll roll it back.
My queen.
Your sister?
One more time? Sure, no problem.
My queen.
Yeah, that ain't your fucking queen, buddy.
I'm not your buddy, friend. He's not your friend, guy. I'm not your guy, buddy.
It was well established that the alliance between the Targaryen and Greyjoy forces meant that Yara could continue to rule over the Iron Islands as queen.
You're my queen.
Unless he's planning on ditching her after the war to hang out with the Dragon Lady, this line is a whole other level of incompetent writing.
She's sailing to the Iron Islands instead. To take them back in your name.
And why the hell did they take back the islands in Daenerys' name? Literally going against everything they stand for.
I swore to follow Daenerys Targaryen.
Something I have seen others mention as well is that Yara inexplicably stays in Bran the Bland's 6 kingdoms, which don't even get me started. In universe, that is established to already be a misnomer, so it would just be 5 kingdoms, because Dorne was never a kingdom, it was a principality! My theory is that the writers just didn't really want to think about any characters that weren't already an allegory for their own greatness. And look, I don't like to blame actors for issues that are clearly script-based, but there were at least 3 people in that room that had been paid tens of millions to be there, so none of them wanted to speak up and was like, "Excuse me, Mr. Writer-Director, sir, but this is very obviously brain-dead writing." Okay, that was a bad accent, but my point still stands. Why not just change it from "my queen" to "your grace"? Or better yet, have him steamroll past Daenerys entirely once he sees Sansa. If he called her my lady, that would actually have made more sense, somewhat representing the respect and love he feels for her. Now, whether or not that love is romantic is up for debate. I'm not a shipper by any means, but I do think it could have been a really beautiful story to watch 2 people who were sexually abused by the same man reclaim that side of themselves together. Especially with the added twist of him being unable to forgive himself for all the terrible acts he committed and her possibly just wanting to not think about them at all. But I have seen some good arguments for them to stay platonic as well. Although writing any of that would have taken a great deal of nuance, subtlety, and care, which were definitely not elements present in the rest of the scenes by that point. And my last gripe, well, not my last gripe, but the last one I'll get into right now, is unsurprisingly the death scene. I'm not one of those people who never wants their favorite character to die. I think a good death scene can really make someone all the more compelling, but this was just ridiculous. A lot of people have said that it should have been Jaime Lannister who died defending Bran, which does make sense, but even if it had, this still would have been embarrassing. If he just stood still, nothing would have happened. Arya would have flown out of nowhere and murked the bastard, which, once again, don't get me started. Instead, he just runs at the Night King, and oopsie poopsie, there he goes. I'm also not sure that's how armor physics work. I guess the big lesson he learned from the whole boat incident is that killing yourself for no reason is actually the answer. Yay, suicide? It's so pathetic. He's not even dead in the last shot we see of him in that episode. It would have been really dumb and cheesy if Ramsay's corpse had come back and Victor the Vampire had to face his demons and kill him again while sustaining a mortal wound in the process, but it couldn't have been worse than the reality. He's the only person who the Night King ever actually kills. But he has nothing at all to do with that storyline, just like someone else I know. Okay, if I voiced all my thoughts on this subject, we'd be here until The Winds of Winter is released, which is never gonna happen, so I'm gonna cut this off here. I never want to talk about Victor the Vampire again, as fun as a pandemic video might be. I think I'm done forever. Thank you and goodbye. Oh wait, there's still an hour and 13 minutes left in the movie I'm actually supposed to be talking about. Shoot. So Emily, the probable love interest character, offers Cody a Mentos. He assumes this is one of the exploding ones that Neville gave him and proceeds to grab the one out of her mouth and throw it out the window. I don't know what would have made him assume that she'd stolen his Mentos. This was an insane leap in logic, and I expect better from this quote-unquote legendary operative. He checks his pocket, and no shit, they're still there. At dinner, he's forced to sit next to Sabine, whose actress, Lila Isaac, now runs a very successful YouTube channel dedicated to belly dancing. She seems lovely, but her character can be grating. Her only joke is that she's invasive and likes American things.
Britney Spears. She's the bomb. Is she not?
Derek's undercover as the estate chef who graduated from Compton Community College.
Because in America, if a dish is particularly delicious, we like to say that it's straight out of Compton.
I hope you really did love that joke because there are multiple callbacks to that masterful line. I also don't understand why he personally serves half of the students, but I guess gives the food to the others via house elf magic. After he unveils the food, they're already eating noises before he or the butler gives anyone else food on that side. He never even ends up going over there, so unless Victor the Vampire is eating plain cornbread with a fork, wizardry is the only answer. While his handler scrambles to make dessert, Cody listens in on Kenworth and Captain Squishy plotting their evil deeds. Derek creates a dish called Chocolate Surprise.
This really is straight out of Compton.
Told you so. From the chimney, Cody sees the mind control device in action on this dog when it serves them, as Kenworth puts it, a drinky winky. The other students are all rehearsing as he returns and makes it back just in time to impress Lady Kenworth. The next day he's awoken by Sabine, who recorded him snoring. Then he's off to school. Even though I thought it was summer? I know they're summer students, but making them go to class just seems cruel. Emily attempts to talk music with him, but he takes prop-based improv to a whole new level.
Who's been your most influential?
Well, Heinz.
What's his most notable work?
He's written like 57 varieties.
That is an incredible output.
You know, he's especially busy during his red period.
That scene was actually quite a bit longer, but I cut it down for your sake. By the way, I did not know you could get away with calling someone a jackass in a movie made for kids back in 2004, but I respect it.
Jackass.
No way they're letting that slide these days with fucking Paw Patrol.
You jackass. Yeah.
Now the big evil plan goes as follows. As the CIA suspected, Squishy and Kenworth are planning on mind-controlling influential state figures at the World Leaders Summit. Kenworth so he can replace St. Paul's Cathedral with a statue of him and the dog Anthony Anderson was getting handsy with. And Captain Squishy so he can get back at Keith David for getting the job as head of the CIA instead of him. Oh yeah, they also want to become really rich, because why not? Now you might be thinking, but isn't Kenworth already super rich? And the answer is kinda. Because if you'd read the official book counterpart like I had, you know that he only married Anna Chancellor's character because he was really poor and wanted her money. But he doesn't want to rely on his sugar mommy to fund his research anymore. In order to let Cody infiltrate the lab, Derek pretends to accidentally spill his urine on the security guard's sandwich, which the guard intentionally then eats? I don't know which one of the 3 writers needed to sneak their fetish in there, but congratulations, you did it. It's also never specified what was actually in those beakers, so the presumption is that it is just pee. After a bit of slinking around, Cody bears witness to the implementation of the device via a cavity. He then has to book it for his life when he touches this railing and accidentally sets off an alarm. He almost loses a foot in the elevator, but escapes just in time to get back to class.
Stick your class up your ass.
Though unbeknownst to him, Squishy has recognized Cody on the security camera. Back with the other students, Cody is confronted by the conductor, Sir Jerk-a-Lot.
Hey, did you know you have spinach in your teeth?
Yes, I did, and I'm saving it for later. Now, please.
This movie needs to chill. Although I'd still take this guy over Bradley Cooper any day. He activates the mechanism in the clarinet that makes it play itself, but how all of the musical experts miss the fact that he's not even touching the holes is beyond me. There's even a moment later on in the scene where it starts playing in his lap and just no one notices. Just look at these two. The lights are on and absolutely nobody is home. Squishy waits for his former people outside, and a chase ensues that it would be dishonest to describe as exhilarating. I guess this happens. He's not my moped! I think this whole movie is driving me insane. Just kidding. I went insane a long time ago. Isn't that right, Connor? Everything culminates in this fight amongst these large water containers from the grocery store that you always wondered how much of it you could drink in one sitting. Don't lie, you're thinking it too. We also get some of the most early-aught slow-mo you've ever seen, and Cody is arrested by Arthur Weasley. I guess those ministry raids really have gotten out of hand.
9 raids! 9!
Mid-interrogation, Cody is called down to meet Agent Summers, Agent Emily Summers. She too has been undercover in the youth orchestra, but the difference is she's only pretending to be a child, whereas Cody actually is one.
I'm not a kid.
Kinda weird that they put in some romance vibes between the two of them. I guess they really were banking, no pun intended, on the UK's lower age of consent laws to cover them, and it's the same in Cody's home state of Washington. But say it with me, kids. Just because it's legal doesn't make it less gross. They never do more than a cheek kiss, but maybe they should have just avoided it altogether.
I don't fish.
They get Chinese food, and Cody's a little bitch who can't handle the spice. He then gets kidnapped while Emily's back is turned. And I could just describe what happens in the next scene, but I think now is a good time for a dramatic reading. So, I now present to you Chapter 14. Cody Gets Drilled. Cody slowly woke up, but kept his eyes shut. He wasn't sure what had happened. One minute he was standing in the streets of London, and the next, he had a powerful headache, and swore he heard elevator music. I've been there, boy. No, I haven't. My life's boring. Cody slowly opened his eyes. He found himself sitting in a dentist's chair, in a dentist's office. He tried to move, then realized he was strapped in. That explained the headache. The people in the black car must have drugged him after they grabbed him. A man stepped into Cody's view. It was the man from the lab, the one leading the other man around with the remote control. That didn't happen in the movie. He's awake, the man said. Then Victor Diaz stepped into Cody's view. He looked at the other man, ignoring Cody Banks. Well, Walter, are you gonna do this or not? Asked Diaz. Walter glanced at Cody nervously. He's just a kid. So, Diaz chuckled. You didn't tell me we were gonna do kids. Why would you phrase it like that? This feels so wrong. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I'll stop interrupting, but Jesus. Walter replied, I won't do it. I absolutely refuse. Diaz picked up a wicked-looking dental tool from the nearby tray and pointed it at Walter. Do it, or I'll scoop out your liver. Walter immediately grabbed the drill and turned to Cody. Say ah. Cody struggled against the restraints, but it was no use. He was wrapped up tight. Diaz grabbed his jaw and forced his mouth open. Walter leaned in and drilled away at one of Cody's teeth. After an agonizing moment, the man stopped and put his instrument away. Diaz smiled at the young agent. You know, if you put up a fuss, you won't get a lollipop. Too angry to worry about the pain, Cody glared at his former instructor. It's not too late, Diaz. Come quietly now, and I'm sure I can get you. Rinse, Walter interrupted. Cody turned his head to the side and spit in the nearby bowl. He turned back to Diaz. Some kind of deal for $500 million, Diaz asked. Because that's the kind of deal I have in mind. Whatever you're up to, you'll never get away with it, Cody warned. They'll catch you for sure. No, Diaz replied. They'll catch you. Diaz grabbed Cody's jaw and forced it open once more. Walter leaned in and reached into Cody's mouth. The young agent felt a stab of pain as Walter did something to the tooth he drilled earlier. He heard a click and then blackness. Oh my gosh, that was horrible. I don't know what was more graphic, reading that or Augustine's death from 120 Days. Honestly, if they'd said Cody had gotten 58 wounds in the buttocks with boiling oil poured on each one of them, it would have fit in just fine in that passage. Now, under the influence of mind control, Cody starts a food fight at breakfast. I've never understood why Victor the Vampire isn't in this scene. We do know he isn't much of a morning person, I guess. I wonder if he just categorically refused to get beans and sauce thrown at him. Or if he's the one sneaking around and rotating the bottle of HP sauce between shots. Banks then makes plans to meet with Keith David at Piccadilly. I don't know if this is a real phone from '04, but it looks like a somehow worse version of one of those Apple mice. The meeting takes place on a double-decker bus, because London. The suspicious Emily films the whole thing as the baddies hijack Keith David. The trio get away with the director, but she and Derek are successful in dislodging Cody's chip via Chekhov's Mentos. By the way, out of context, this is a hilarious moment. Actually, it's still hilarious in context, too. And while we're at it, this is an unnecessarily funny line.
Hey! Never interrupt the brother when he's breaking down the apothecary's table.
They head over to the palace for the summit, which according to the book is on children's rights. Should they have them? I don't think so. Just kidding. They notice some odd behavior from various dignitaries under Squishy's control, who forces the British Prime Minister to appoint Kenworth as head of the Royal Mint. Seeing that his finances are now secure, he promptly asks Joanna for a divorce. You know, I think I might be getting some vibes between Kenworth and Squishy. Or I'm just bored. Probably that one, actually. Oh, wait, actually, let me try and recreate Kenworth's cigar point there. Wait. Shit. Realizing that they'll need a distraction, Cody employs the help of the kids in the band, but not before we get some cultural insensitivity from our very own Victor the Vampire.
What is the pastry chef doing here? And why is he wearing a dress?
It's not a dress, it's a bobo.
Cody, always the race-conscious legend, does whatever this is to him and convinces the others of their mission. There is a part of me that wishes they'd stuck with the original ending and chartered in all the Camp Woody students to fight alongside them and lock the band in the garage the whole time. But this will eventually lead to a pretty epic scene. That's not for a bit, though. For now, Derek does this as a cover.
I'm Habu's uncle. Compton.
What? No.
They just won't let that one die, will they? Funny how he said what without even moving his lips.
Compton.
What? No.
That was some me-level audio editing right there. While looking for the missing president of the United States, Derek himself is captured and brainwashed. They set him on Cody using a software that looks like one of those weird mobile app commercials that seemingly gets off on showing women just suffering the whole time.
A little old for video games, aren't we?
Whoa, Emily, let the man live. We love a gamer. I mean, not this gamer. He is trying to take over the world, but still a pretty low blow. Not as low as this one, though. She disarms the conditioning just in time, and her partner in crime, or partner in fighting crime, is able to dislodge the microchip.
Your Majesty, put your clothes back on.
Okay, I've done a video on literal porn, and this is somehow the horniest movie I've ever seen. They deprogram Keith David and rescue the president, but Squishy is still on the loose. He takes the plans for the mind control prototype by, no joke, squeezing Santiago's balls until he tells them where they are. I also assume they forgot to film a wide shot of the orchestra just playing on their own because they actually cut in a shot of the scene later where he's up on stage singing. That kind of lazy is something I strive to be one day. But speaking of the concert scene, Cody and the gang are running out of time. So as a last-minute diversion, Victor the Vampire puts on his very best sweatband and does this. Was this entire movie just made in hopes that Kevin Allen could kickstart his nephew's singing career? Yeah, probably. It didn't really, but it was good practice for Victor the Vampire to later play a British pop star in that movie I didn't watch starring Beanie Feldstein. This whole war scene does go pretty hard, though. I mean, even the Queen gets into it. Cody and Squishy fight for a bit. Obviously, Cody comes out victorious through the power of friendship. Squishy hits himself in the dick with some nunchucks, probably breaking Michelangelo's heart. And the match ends with a quote from Cody referencing Squishy's earlier negging.
Go and write that on your lunchbox.
The weird-ass butler I haven't mentioned because he's not funny apprehends Kenworth. Joanna doesn't give a shit because she's just cool like that. And the day is saved! Cody says goodbye to Emily, asking her to come visit him in Seattle sometime. Still weird. Then we get possibly one of the most iconic lines to ever grace cinema.
Goodbye, Uncle Compton.
No, the one before that.
Goodbye, Woodwind buddy.
No, the one before that.
See you on that flip side, Cody.
Truly inspired writing right there. Missed opportunity from the merchandising team not to sell shirts that say that. Back in the good old US of A, Derek has taken over Camp Woody and has a heartfelt goodbye with his former charge. And finally, Cody heads home with his family. His mother now trusts him enough to give him a new pocket knife, and his little brother almost gets blown up by a Mentos. The end. Was this the best movie ever made? Fuck no, but for the bit, I'ma keep saying it was. Nowhere near as bad as Night Teeth, though. If you do really want to watch me sink into a pit of despair and insanity, go watch my video on that trash fire. Now let's all go petition Amazon to let me direct Agent Cody Banks 3. I have none of the knowledge or qualifications required to do so, but come on, Bezos, what have you got to lose? Goodwill towards a franchise nobody's thought about in 20 years. It ended on a whimper anyway. You could even do a cool crossover with Barely Lethal, that other spy movie nobody cared about. Or if you're feeling real spicy, sprinkle a little Spy Kids in there. I don't know, it's all up to you, Jeff. Or maybe I could get Madonna and Jason Alexander on board again. This time with the real Matthew Broderick. Well, It's been real fun re-recording this video because my hard drive corrupted while I was halfway through editing it. See you on Das Flipside!